Hi, everyone. I'm here with Evan Lazarus of Simple Impact Media. Simple Impact Media is one of the marketing companies that I have heard a lot of good things about, and I wanted to bring them in as a sponsor for our group. And I've asked Evan to come and introduce himself and his company to see how he can help us grow our practices. Evan, take a minute or so to introduce yourself and tell me what you guys do and how things go. Tell me a little about history. You know, the stuff that he told me about. I thought it was pretty interesting how you got into this business.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Bob, and I appreciate it. I'm super excited to be a sponsor of the group. I know it's a really engaged, community. My background is really kind of vast. I spent about 17 years in the hedge fund, Wall Street world. I ran a hedge fund. I left the business in 2013, the end of 2013, for sake of mental burnout, for sake of I had twin baby girls on basically a desert island, which is a whole different story in itself. And it was just time to do something else. I took a year off and I got involved with a couple of people locally that asked me to help them with their dental business operationally. I was a COO, so I had a really strong sort of operations background and a finance background. That was really how I got into dentistry. I am not a dentist. I have no interest in being one. My interest really lies in helping people grow businesses. That's where my personal expertise really, I think, comes into play. So my business really does two things. It does what people mostly understand as the traditional digital elements, right? Web design and creative, photography, videography, SEO, being found online, being found in search. Advertising is a big part of the business. I would put that all sort of in the digital bubble. And then we also work inside the practice, helping doctors become stronger operationally, clinically, administratively, being efficient with what they do, which I learned, through the course of just working with a lot of doctors, which in many instances are small business owners, local businesses serving local communities. And, when you are a doctor owner, it's hard. You're going from operatory to operatory. You're trying to run a business, manage a staff, payroll, all the moving parts of the business, and do good dentistry. Sometimes, if not many, many times, it becomes priority number two, and number three is the business itself. And so I've learned that, many doctors want marketing, not all, many. They believe that marketing is the thing that's going to help them grow their business, right? If we do this, then we should get here. And in many instances, from my experience in talking to lots of doctors and lots of dentists, a lot of practices just aren't ready for marketing. They're not ready to invest because the revenue, and this is something you and I chatted about at length, the revenue of a business is generated inside the walls of the business. The marketing company, can do the SEO, can do the advertising, can make the phone ring, can bring more traffic to your website. But the revenue, the piece that is the growth, because at the end of the year, every business owner is going to say the same thing. Every dentist will say the same thing. Well, I'm spending money on these things, whether it's SEO or advertising, where's all my patients and why haven't we made more money? And in many instances, we have to look at the business, right? I know lots of doctors that get new patients, but don't grow because they have a backdoor problem. I know lots of doctors that get new patients, but they don't reappoint those patients. They don't leave with their next appointment scheduled. I know lots of doctors that don't diagnose. If you don't diagnose, you can't treat. If you can't treat, you're not going to make a lot of money. And so it doesn't matter what the marketing does. If you have these holes in the bucket, and every business has them, my business has them, right? Just different slice of holes. Yeah. Then it's really hard to grow. And so in the years that I've been doing this, I've learned a lot in talking to lots of dentists, and I know sort of a lot of the trials and tribulations that go along with owning a dental practice. They're the same for every business. It's not unique, right? The guy that owns the hamburger stand has the same problems with staff that you probably have, maybe a little different twist on it, but the same general problems. And so I really try in the very upfront, as I've done, with you, to figure out and diagnose the business. I say it to every dentist I talk to, so I'm kind of a broken record in this regard. I can't come up with a plan to help you grow your business, whether it includes advertising and marketing and all those things, unless I understand what your business is really good at and not good at, right? We have to diagnose to treat. I do the same thing. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's a little painstaking, but it's amazing to me how many doctors don't know their KPIs or their analytics of their business. I can ask them one question. It's how many new patients did you get last month? I guarantee you 9.5 out of 10 will tell me, oh, I got 30 new patients, 20 new patients, 100 new patients, whatever the number is. But then my follow-up question is immediately, how many patients became inactive last month? Meaning how many patients haven't been there in 18 months for anything? And the answer I get is this.
Silence.
I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Every business has a front door and a back door, right? I don't care so much about new patients. I know doctors seem to think this is like the holy grail of business. It's not. It's patient acquisition followed by patient value, right? What are these patients worth to you? Just because you got a new patient doesn't really mean anything. If you're not, right, if your annual patient value, right, so what a patient is worth over 12 months is really low, right? Having more patients just means you're going to work a lot harder. So if I were to ask the same 10 dentists, ask your group, right? How many would rather work smarter and not harder? What do you think the poll results would be? You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I can only use myself as an example.
Right.
But I don't have that data.
Right. And so marketing doesn't fix that. So my model has evolved over time, like many businesses, right? I'm sure your dental practice is a lot different now than what it was, 5 or even 10 years ago. My business model has evolved as my conversations and understanding of the pain points that practices have, has become way more apparent. So I look at it more as a holistic approach. So I will tell a doctor straight to their face, and I know a lot of agencies won't. You are not ready to spend money because it's just, you can insert whatever, analogy you want, throwing it in the toilet, burning it on fire. You're not going to get any return on these invested dollars. And so why do it? Versus understanding the things that you're not good at, investing in your team, sometimes investing in yourself clinically, right? How to talk to patients about money, how to present treatment, how to get more patients to agree to treatment, right? Sometimes it's how the phones are handled, right? Converting those phone calls. I even see instances where phones are just not answered. So marketing doesn't matter if you have glaring inefficiencies as a business owner. And so that's my philosophy. Some doctors are ready for marketing. A lot of doctors are ready for marketing. Their teams are, operating efficiently, and they're diagnosing and they're treating and they're reappointing, and they have a good patient value and all of those pieces. Those doctors, those business owners crush it with marketing, absolutely annihilate it. So the question I'll ask you as a practice owner, right? Because you and I are just having a conversation from a dentist to a marketer. The conversation really becomes like, how do you get a return on your dollars? And do you care how you grow? Is the only thing that matters to you would be, well, on average, I get 20 new patients a month. I want to get 30. Okay. But that's not necessarily going to dictate or indicative of growth. So do you care as a business owner how you grow? If you had a $1 million practice and the goal was to increase 20%, so we wanted to get to 1.2 million next year, do you care how you do it?
No, I mean, it doesn't matter, right?
Right. It shouldn't, the way my brain works, it shouldn't matter.
As
Right.
long as it's ethical, and
Of course, right? We're gonna assume the obvious, but whether it's, hey, my expenses are way out of line, or I don't have a budget, and so I'm not spending enough, which is rampant in dentistry, right? I had an instance last week where the practice owner had a $4 million practice. It's a very healthy, nice, big practice. And he said to me, I don't want to spend more than $800 a month in advertising. I said, what's that going to do? You have a $4 million business. You think $800 a month is going to move your needle? If I get you 4 patients with $800, what is that going to do for your bottom line? I said, take the $800, go out to a really lovely dinner, take your wife to a show, whatever it may be. So you have to think in terms of doing this with a process, right? And doing this under the guidance of, a strategy and a plan. Plan can include a budget. One of my other favorite go-to questions for dentists when we do our consults is, what's your budget? I don't know. I know the last guy was doing it was charging me like $600. Okay, but that's not a budget. That's just a random number. So it is a process that does take time to really get to the point of how to grow a business. My focus is growth. My focus is not necessarily just, hey, I'm going to do a website for you. We can do all those things, but they're not necessarily going to translate into a bottom line, right? They'll influence perception. They have their significance, right? It's like, the spokes on a tire. There's lots of spokes, but we're not going to focus on the whole holistic thing is the tire. It's not one thing. It's not just SEO or just Google ads, right? It's that combined with patient acquisition, combined with practice efficiency. That's how you get revenue.
yeah, I get a lot of these questions as well. I get, oh, I did this for 3 months and I only got this many patients, and marketing takes time, right? I mean, it's not something that you can press a button and here comes the growth.
I wish it was. I used to have one of those like red buttons on my desk, right? Just like a Staples button.
Right.
I wish I could just press it and we're good to go. No, that's not reality. That's not real life. It amazes me how many docs have never really thought about or invested in their teams. I have it was really a very pivotal conversation. I had this conversation with an executive at ClearChoice. Huge corporate dentistry, right? I'm not comparing ClearChoice to you or to any local practice owner, but the conversation was really about the amount of money that is invested to train the people that answer the phone calls. So when you see those commercials playing, right, those phones are ringing, those conversations, the people that handle those calls, they spend well over $10-12 million a year investing just in training how to handle phone calls, how to be persuasive, right? How to show empathy on the phone, because that's the piece. They are the gatekeepers of the revenue. So I say to doctors all the time, like, have you ever invested money in your revenue gatekeepers? They look at me like, what? What do you mean? Well, you've got all these people answering your phones. I would say 70, 80, 90% of your revenue probably flows through that channel. Why are you not investing in making them the best at what they do? And the answer is it's hard. It's hard. You're pulling teeth all day. You're going from op to op to op, talking to patients and doing your, dental tango. It's hard to do all of these things, but it's more about the mindset, right? You would sooner buy yourself a BMW or put a pool in your backyard or spend money in ways that are not really going to ever return to you versus saying, hey, let me make sure that the people that are really managing the revenue are really good at what they do. How do we do that? What systems do I need in place, right? What can we do there? That's not marketing. That's just good, sound business and making sure that the team and the people you surround yourself with are really, really good at what they do. And it's having good process in place. I believe, even in my hedge fund days, a lot of the money that was made in the business was a function of good process. Marketing to me is process. I know a lot of doctors confuse marketing and advertising. They kind of lump them as like this one giant thing, right? It's all the same. It's not. Marketing is process oriented, right? Or having process. Advertising is patient acquisition.
Yeah, and Evan, I'm sure a lot of doctors are like myself. We are really ignorant about these things in the world of dentistry. I mean, I know I'm an old guy, so I know back in the day it was even frowned upon to advertise and to market yourself. Nowadays, it's everywhere. Groupon or I don't know. Pretty soon, you know, we're going to see it everywhere, and it's on every TV channel. So what do you do? Like, let's say someone comes to you. I want to know what the process is. Someone comes to you and says, look, I don't even know what budget to pick. Can you help them pick a budget? And what happens if they say, oh, I can't afford that? As you said, the $4 million practice, 800 won't do anything. Do you have like a formula that if someone is doing, let's say, $500,000 a year, and they really want to get to 800,000, do you have a formula how much they should put aside as a budget?
I mean, we can use, so there's no, the answer to the question is there's no like exact. There's no exact. Every business has its own nuances, unique flavor. It really comes down to a conversation in terms of budgets, right? What is an appropriate budget, which I think is really the crux of your question.
Right.
The answer really lies in what are you looking for, right? What is the goal? Start with the goal. What are we trying to accomplish? Okay, if we're trying to accomplish how we go from 500 to 800, which is a 50%, which is a massive increase, what is that going to really take to move the needle? Can we do that internally? Again, diagnosing the business. I looked at a practice this morning, obviously no names. Practice is collecting 82% of net production.
Wow.
You want to make more money, collect. That's something that will impact your bottom line tomorrow. But the doctor has no idea. She will when I speak to her next week, but she has no idea right now. I know exactly how the conversation is. Oh my God, I had no idea. Well, you have to know these things. You don't have to know everything, but you have to know that the pieces of your business that are generating revenue are working, right? And they're measurable. In terms of going back to your budget question, most of the time, I think a healthy advertising spend is anywhere from 2 to 4% of collections. I think investing in your team, coaching, consulting, training, whatever you want to call it, should be at 1 to 2%, right? You should always want to better yourself and have your team perform at a higher level. If your team's not interested in performing at a higher level, or they have no interest in you investing in them, they're probably not the right team member, right? And then in terms of marketing, again, anywhere from 2 to 4%. Marketing can include more of the software related pieces, right? So if you have something that's handling getting you reviews, like a reputation software or a patient communication software, right? Or SEO is even marketing, because SEO is process driven. I know a lot of doctors think SEO is supposed to get you new patients, but it really is more about process and visibility. And that's a separate conversation. But yes, there are sort of ranges we can put. There are variables, right? Are you in New York City with 8 million other dentists, or are you in rural, small town USA, and it's you and a handful of other docs? So it's not apples to apples for every, for every practice. So those are the things that we'll look at, and there's just conversations. There's no exact. It's not about saying this is the perfect number, right? But I know that if you are spending, let's say 4% or 5% or 6% in between your marketing and your ad spend, and you are, $1 million practice, and you go to, the next year, if you go to 1.3 million, that 6% is still going to be 6%. It's just going to be a bigger number. Versus pigeonholing yourself, which is more how a lot of business owners do it. They pigeonhole themselves to like a figure. I'm only going to spend $1,000. Well, what's $1,000? What is that? That's relative to what? Now, that's just a number you created in your head because you're afraid to spend. If you don't invest in your business, whether it's in your team or in your marketing or the perception or your brand, you will not grow. You won't. Now, sometimes brand growth can be organic, right? And you look back and you say, I've been doing this for 30 years, right? I finally am, at the peak of my game, right? But it took you 30 years to get there. How do we expedite that process? How do we get your brand to be visible to as many people as possible?
You're not supposed to make fun of me, man. All your examples are me. I've been talking to people that, I made a lot of mistakes early on. I had this, I believed online people that all consultants and all coaches are scams, and I'm looking at them, it's like, yeah, there are a lot of good and bad people in every profession. And if I would have hired the right people to show me the way, I may have gotten where I am now after 10 years, and it's just, I have these conversations with people like yourself, with people like, Dr. Anissa Holmes, and people who help, Dr. Len Tao. I know you're going to be at Dr. Tao's Florida symposium at the end of September. I'm going to be there as well to super boost your practice. If I would have listened to people like yourselves, I may have not been here.
I will tell you this, okay? And this is, it's not something I brag about, but I'm the thing that I'm most thankful for, and I've had success in my life, right? I was a product of an industry that, was about money. And I was at the right place at the right time. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'll tell you that flat out. Sometimes being successful there's a lot of luck. You show me any successful person, I will tell you that some luck happened along the way. It is a part of success. Prior to that, I almost went into bankruptcy at 3 separate occasions. So if one of the things I preach I have 3 kids to my kids, swing the bat. You can't hit the ball if you don't swing the bat. That's like something culturally that is embedded in me. And there are so many doctors just afraid to, move the business forward. They're afraid of their employees. I see this all the time. I say that the village runs the kingdom. The staff runs the business, not the doctor, not the owner, right? That is rampant in dentistry because you're so afraid that somebody's going to leave, or you're so afraid that this might happen. You don't want to rock the boat. You have to make mistakes, Bob, to succeed. There is no other way. I started this business. I didn't know a third of what I know now, right? That's the evolution of a business. And, in the trading world, in the finance world, and I think it applies to just about everything, there's a term that I learned very early on when we look at risk. And the term is unconscious incompetence. You know what that means?
I can imagine.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So because you're a skilled dentist doesn't mean you're going to be a great business owner. I'm sure you know a lot of people that are really good dentists that are really crappy business owners. So you got to surround yourself with the people to help you get there. Right? I've surrounded myself with a staff and a team of really skilled people of things that I am not necessarily the best at. Right? We do really great SEO, at least I think we do, because I built a really good skilled team. I'm probably the most unskilled at that particular thing. I understand it, but it doesn't mean I'm doing it. So I surround myself with people that are good at those things. And I think the same, is true for you. I tell a lot of doctors, when they're at a certain point in their career, bring in a CFO, maybe not in a full capacity where they're going to sit in your office, but somebody that can not talk to you about your taxes and planning financially, but really planning for the business. What does that mean? That means, hey, if you want to take off the month of August, how are we going to make it so that the production doesn't fall apart in August, right? Or if this hygienist, produces a lot more when she works with this person versus that person, what are they doing that they're not doing? So really deep dive into your numbers to make sure that your business is running really, really efficiently. And you can plan for, how are we going to make $2 million this year? How are we going to get to 2.3? Let's look at the whole business from a fiscal standpoint, right? Remove all the bias, and there's a lot to be learned in doing that. So I really, as much as people, 9 out of 10 times when somebody connects with me or reaches out to me, it's, I want a website, I want SEO, I want to do some Google ads. That seems to be the thing that everybody, covets and wants. But it's my job to then, like I said, peel back the onion of the business and say, hey, let's do it. This makes a lot of sense. Everything looks right, or we need to focus on this, because you're going to waste money. Your expectations are not going to be met.
And this is what I liked about you and your company, is because my members know that I spend a lot of time before I sign an agreement as a sponsor for my group. I want to see if what you're saying makes sense. And I love the fact that you told me, I don't want to take anyone's money if they have a leak, basically, from the back door. And that's really important to me. I also want to basically change the conversation among dentists, that I have friends that, oh, I'm doing my own Google ads. I mean, what are you doing? You're sitting behind the computer and you're spending $3,000 to bid people up. I mean, for what? Are you getting any results? And then you said that there are a lot of dental offices that are not efficient, for the lack of a better word. I think I'm not as efficient as I should be. However, we're surviving. We're making money. And this is what it was so attractive to these corporate entities, that they looked at us and said, look, they're making money and they're so inefficient. What if we put efficiencies in place and we can basically make hundreds of millions of dollars, as they're doing? So what I tell my members, and I'd like for them to realize this, is that the world has changed, and I, for one, am going to have a budget for marketing. In other words, you can't compete with the bigger offices and the corporate entities if you're not going to do the same thing as they're doing. Use KPI, use numbers, basically, and data to help you understand how you can improve. And a firm like yourself can help us with that. I like people who are honest and say, yeah, you can spend $10,000 a month in marketing, but because you're not taking care of them, it's going to go to waste. Was your message, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You bring up a good point. Because it's just you and I here, there's nobody else. I'll ask you the question, what does your internal marketing look like from your practice? How would you answer that question?
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Every couple of months, I go to my staff and says, hey, don't forget to ask the patients for marketing. I have nothing, basically. It's like every time I remember, I tell my staff to do so. Or if I'm in the room and I remember, I do that. I don't have a system to basically do that. Yeah, we run some specials that if you refer someone, they get this and you get this, or things like that. But we don't push it. We don't have a plan.
The answer is no. You don't have an internal marketing plan.
No.
Okay, and that's fine. That's extremely common. So a lot of doctors interpret that as, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to send out postcards, or what do you want to do? Give everybody Starbucks gift cards? No, that's not really where I'm going with it. The follow-up question I'm going to ask you, and we're going to get to the point. I want it to come from you, not from me.
Uh-huh.
Are you a good dentist? Are you a great dentist? Don't be humble. Be honest. Do you think you are a really good dentist?
I'm above average.
Your patients come back?
I have 4 generations coming to me.
So then I would say that speaks volumes about the care that you provide. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the actual craft of dentistry, if you could name 3 types of cases exclusively, you're only going to see these types of patients, what would they be?
I would say implant restoration, crown and bridge, and removable. I know a lot of doctors hate it. Removable prosthetics.
Okay, so let me ask you then, if that's the thing, and most of the time, you know, a lot of doctors will say it depends on their slice. It's usually bread and butter, you know, crown and bridge, or it'll be, you know, I love Invisalign. I just want to do Invisalign or implants, right? I want to, if they're placing implants. The big ticket dentistry is generally where the conversation kind of moves. I don't think I've ever had anybody say to me, well, if I could just whiten people's teeth all day, every day, you know, that would be so fulfilling to me. And so it's generally big ticket dentistry, you know, higher ticket dentistry, and that's totally understandable. The follow-up question that I then ask is, how do you tell your story? You know, so I go into dentist's office all the time, and you know what I see? I see white walls, and I see like sterile personality. And I say to myself, I don't understand. This doctor loves to do this thing, right? I'll use Invisalign. Why not take pictures of the people whose life you're changing and the happiness and the smiles, right? And showcase like the whole face, the before and the after, and line your walls with what you do really well and tell your story. It's so easy. It's not an agency responsibility because I can't be in the, right? We're not in your office. We're not boots on the ground. We're not taking the pictures, right? But why not showcase your work? I have a doctor who does this fantastically. It's amazing. His whole operatory is basically, he's got 2 ops full of Invisalign cases that he's done. And so when the patients come in for hygiene, specifically the new patients, where do you think they're put? In one of those 2 rooms. And where do you think the conversation naturally goes? You know why? Because they're not sitting there looking at pictures of first aid infographics, right? Or bad sterile pictures of like waterfalls or the mountains. You know, give your office some personality. It is marketing, but you're doing it in a way that you're telling your story so that the conversation naturally will flow. That doctor that I talked about in Invisalign, he became an Invisalign Platinum provider in under 2 years, and people travel 50, 60, 70 miles to come to his office. He's branded himself that way. He's done a great job of telling his story, not through $500 off, you know, consult, right? Or some sort of Invisalign driven promotion. It's really through storytelling. So it amazes me how many doctors don't showcase the thing that they love to do and what they're really good at, so that the conversation naturally, and the inherent perception of that new patient is, wow, this guy must be really good. I've always wanted to do Invisalign. It's amazing. Patient always says the same thing. I've always wanted to do this. Hygienist is trained on how to steer that conversation. Next thing you know, the iTero's in the office and off we go. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to do it, but the seed has been planted. Mm-hmm. Versus what most doctors do is they wait for the patient to say, do you do Invisalign? How much is that? Think about how much opportunity you're missing because you don't internally market the thing that you love to do. I, for the life of me, can't understand that. 8 out of 10 doctors have the most sterile. They may say, well, our office is beautiful because I put in a $30,000 chandelier in the lobby. I'd rather see pictures of your work, right? And the thing that you love to do, and make sure your patients that come in there, they know you love to do that thing or those things.
Yeah, we need training. We need training. It's a whole mindset, you know, it's a whole mindset. I'm sure there are old timers like me listening to this conversation and says, I'm not doing that. You know, it's,
you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
You put an operating procedure in place. You task somebody in the office. Your job every day is to take 5 pictures, put them in a Google Drive, create the files so that we have all the cases, right? Here's Amy, here's Mike, here's Bob, here's the, right? And the pictures get dropped in, and it's just a process. And then you can take those pictures and put them in an app that will frame them. And every week, my doctor gets like 2 packages with these like $15, $20 frames, framed images. Done.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, right? Yes. I know this stuff sounds, you know, doctors get really you do something, if you've been doing this for a while, you become creatures of habit. And the idea of change is like, the thought of it is like, wow, it sounds like a great idea. But then the actual implementation is where it goes just haywire. You do it for like a day, you do it for like 3 days. It's like a diet or the gym. I went this week. I haven't been in a month though.
So, Evan, tell me if someone wants to sign up with you guys,
Mhm.
and you and I talked about this, and as you know, as we discussed, you're not the right fit for every practice, and
Mhm.
you guys interview the doctor as much as the doctor interviews you. You
Yep.
don't want misunderstandings and things like that. You want to be on the same page as far as the strategy goes. I love when doctors hire a professional and then they tell them how to do their job. It's like the patient coming to me and says, "Oh, you know what? If you do the root canal, but use these files." I'm a big fan of when you hire a professional, stand aside and let them do their job. If you're not happy, you can part ways. What I want to know from you is that what is your process? Kind of give me a little
Yeah,
quick outline of what you do.
it's very easy.
Mhm.
Um, the first step is just to schedule a consult with me. They're usually about an hour. I don't charge anybody anything. And it's just an open dialogue about the business. I sit and I take a lot of notes and I try to understand what your goals are, what you want to do, where you've been, where you're coming from, what the road looks like. So I try to keep that conversation very high level. And then, from there, we'll talk about, what the possibilities are once I have a construct of, what the goal is.
Right.
It's amazing to me. And I will say, I ask, 10 doctors, I'll say, what's the goal? I want more butts and seats. All 10. It's not even 9.9. All 10 will say, I want more butts and seats. And then from there, I have to really start to look at numbers, and I will ask the doctor to provide me numbers. I am a big advocate of using analytic softwares, whether it's Dental Intel is the one that I tend to gravitate to, but I know there's others. So I can extract data out of your practice management system to really see what's going on under the hood. And I do that. And then once I look at the data, I can easily see, like, are there issues here that are going to prevent us from achieving that goal that need to be addressed first? It's not about selling somebody, like some coaching service or selling somebody, a service. It's really about figuring out what is the right plan here, at least for the next 12 months, because growth, I own several businesses now. I've been a business person for a long time. It ain't a straight line.
Mhm.
It isn't. And so I need to know that the doctor really has a willingness to want to dive into the business. I need to know that the doctor is engaged in what it is they're doing and they can afford to spend the time. There are a lot of doctors that have reached out to me that are like, yeah, I hear you're good at SEO, or I hear, I saw a Facebook post, somebody said this, that, or the other. I don't really like my guy. I don't know what they're doing. So I want you to do it. That's not really what I do. And so my business is not scalable. I'm not a cafeteria of dental marketing. I'm just not, right? I provide a higher end, more customized service, really designed for people that are seeking growth. The reality of it is that if you are straight out of dental school and you are mired in debt and you just bought a practice and the practice is doing 300 or 400 grand a year in collections, you probably aren't ready for me. Right. So I need people that have been in business for a little bit of time. They have collections. They have a business that's moving forward. Maybe they're stuck in the mud and they haven't seen any growth, or they're just trying to figure out how to jumpstart this thing. That's typically the right, the right fit.
I'm a big Shark Tank fan. Watch every episode, and what Mr. Wonderful always says, he goes, "I'm not here to make your business. I'm here to throw gasoline on the fire to
Right.
make sure
Right.
you get a bigger business."
Right.
And that's what your message is, basically.
Basically, and I got to figure out if you have a fire, right? And if not, why not? This isn't. It's just a little bit of like investigation, right? Due diligence, research, analysis, whatever you want to call it. so that the doctor really understands what's going on under the hood of the car. Now, the things that I can't tell you at the initial sort of inception or in the first call, I can't tell you how your phones are being handled. I can do secret shopper and I can call the practice and I can pretend, but even that's not really, you know, so there are pieces that we uncover down the road, right? I have plenty of instances where I'll say, listen, I think I think the administrative team really needs some hand holding here because we're losing, right? You're paying money for the phone to ring. It's costing you, doctor, $70 every time the phone rings. And these phones, they're just, you know, patients on hold for 6 minutes. That just can't be. How do we solve some, you know, so things come up, right? As we go down the road, we will find the bumps. And the idea is that, you know, we're going to try to iron out those bumps to the extent that we can do that, you know, at that time or it becomes relevant. So it's not, you know, like I said, my plans when I engage with a practice, the plan that you set out for day one is probably not the plan, you know, that we're at in 24 months or 36 months. And so, you know, the guy or the gal that's looking for like a cheap vendor to give them package A, and package A includes A, B, and C, and package B is, you know, ABC plus D, E, and F is probably not, you know, it's probably not my target audience. They're not going to find, you know, I'm just not for them. And I'm very okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs to be on the same page and see how things are done. And what are you going to talk about? You're lecturing at Dr. Tao's event, right, in September?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the title in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's how to diagnose your business before you intend to grow it, something along those lines, right? And I'm going to talk about looking at some of those, you know, KPIs and having the right. It's really more about the right mindset of a growth oriented provider. If the expectation is I'm going to hire the agency because those guys, they're going to do the thing. They're going to deliver me. And I think it's hysterical. The agency is responsible for getting me the patient in my chair, and that patient should be ready to go for all on fours and be ready to cut a check for 40 grand for a treatment plan today is a joke. Mm-hmm. It's a joke, right? That's an absolute joke. So part of it is having the right expectations.
Right.
You know, I say to doctors all the time, and I probably said it to you when we spoke, you know, a few times ago, you know, I have to manage your expectations about what is realistic here and what we can do and what's attainable. It is collaborative. It's not just hire the agency and then they're solely responsible for all the revenue that comes into my practice from that day moving forward. You know, so I pick up on a lot of things that doctors say because of the experiences maybe they've had. It's like touching the oven, right? You got burned, so you don't want to touch the oven again. Or you think all agencies are bad. So the question I will ask you is, how many patients come through your door as a result of bad dentistry elsewhere?
Biggest source of referral.
Right? It's everywhere, right? There's good marketing companies. There's marketing companies that aren't as good, right? The reality of it is you have to be an educated buyer. So when a doctor says to me, how much is your thing? And that's all they're solely interested in, they're not the right fit, right? They're just, right. They don't care about how we make the soup, right? It's just how much is it? That's not the right mindset. If they say to me, you're my fourth marketing company in the last 8 months, that doesn't mean I can't help them. It just means that maybe their expectations need to be managed, right? Maybe their expectations are just wildly out of control. And
kind
so
of like the denture patients, you know?
And I have had the instance where the doctor tells me how to do the marketing. And I say to them, I'll say, like, do your patients tell you how to do the dentistry? Because that's what you're doing.
Right.
So, you know, there's a little bit of managing personalities in what I do, and that comes with it. And I actually enjoy it.
It's a hard business. I want everybody who's listening to this realize that, you know, obviously there are good and bad marketing companies, but not every marketing company is a right fit for you. That's why we have choices, and you can interview people and see who's better for you. But you got to give it some time. You can't do something for 3 months and say, I didn't get anything, so I'm moving to the next one. So you're always spending money and throwing your money away. And that's I've heard so much of this from other doctors. I don't know. I'm not an expert in marketing, but I know that I have to give it some time.
Part of it for me is really just understanding what it is you want to accomplish.
Mhm.
You, the doctor, the person hiring the marketing company or the coach or whatever it may be, you really need to understand what the business is good at and what you're not good at. And I'm so perplexed by the doctors that are just focused on how much does it cost, or how much does it, at the end of the day, if I can grow your business 20%, how much would you pay for that? If I said to you, if you said to me, I would need 10 more new patients a month, right? It's not the quantity, it's the value, right? 3 patients that are worth $3,000 each versus 10 patients worth, a couple $100. You're going to take the quality over the quantity. So I just think it's really just trying to understand the mindset of the doctor and really explain things to them in a very clear way. The one piece that is rampant among dentists
Mhm.
is that you are collectively, when it comes to purchasing a relationship with an agency or hiring a vendor, be educated about what you're buying. It's doctors they all think they need SEO. Why? Well, that's just what we do. We do SEO because I want Google to, know where I am or who I am, or I want patients to find me in Google. And there's truth to that, right? That's not truth, but not all SEO is the same, right? And so just because somebody says I'll give you SEO and it's $200 a month, well, why is this guy charging me $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month? Right? It's not all the same. So you can buy a car, right? A Volkswagen and a Ferrari are both cars. Are they the same thing? The problem is that the doctor is uneducated about what it is they're buying. So I really do try to take the time to explain how we make the soup. I don't need you to be an SEO. I don't need you to be in the weeds. I don't need you to understand all the detail. I just need you to understand at a high level, here's what we're doing and here's how it's different than maybe what you've ever seen. And here are the results and here's what you can expect. It's just communication that makes the biggest difference. That's I think for me, that's the most important part.
Yeah, and also I wanted to kind of mention that this SEO, search engine optimization, can be done automated, can be done overseas, can be done by people who don't really know your business. And it's really important to make sure that, again, comes back to the symbol. When you spend the money, make sure you know what you're spending it on and where it's going.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Evan, I wanted to thank you for joining me today. Hopefully this would be the first of many conversations we're going to have to educate dentists, even if they're not your client. I'd like for your insights to be a resource for the members, and it's good to know, and we can go from there.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed as I always do. I enjoyed our conversation, and I'm happy to talk to any of your members at any time. I try to be a very accessible person. So I look forward to more dialogue in the future.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have a landing page for if anyone wants to get a hold of you, they can fill out a form and you can contact them. Thanks again for being with me, and hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks, Bob. It's a pleasure.